Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome, as usual, to our Thursday night show. Excuse me, the Sports Crib, home of the Sports Crib Network. Um, Demetrius will not be with us tonight. He's out traveling, but we have Mr. Carroll coming back after being gone for a couple of programs here. We'll talk to him about that. Mike will join us a little bit later. Mr. Jeffrey Fann will talk a little bit of college basketball with us as well. So let's get this show on the road here. Good evening, Bill. How are you doing?
I am here. So I got back let me see. I got back I got back Monday. Um but I missed the Monday show. But yes, I am back for the foreseeable future. I had a great experience at the HBCU Combine. Got to talk to Teron Armstead, who was down there. Pat Mahomes there. I did not get to talk to him, but I got to talk to Bucky Brooks a little bit. Um, there were a lot of got to stand that close to Mel Blount. Didn't get to talk to him, but got to stand close to him. A lot of the great HBCU players of the past were there, so it was a great experience.
Jamel, Jamel have on his cowboy hat?
I'm assuming that he wakes up with it on, and I'm assuming he goes to sleep with it on. So yes, I mean, I I have not seen him without a cowboy hat on. I mean, last time I saw him without a cowboy hat on, he was wearing a football helmet. So I assume that as soon as he took the football helmet for the last time, he then put the cowboy hat on, never to take it off again.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of working for a group of Steelers that included Mel Blount, that were part of the Applebee's franchise in the city of Pittsburgh, and we used to get to see some of those Steelers very up close and personal. And then, of course, living in the city of Pittsburgh, uh, was there when they built their new training complex. So, yeah, it was. Those are the things that I miss about Pittsburgh. Right now, it's snowing in Pittsburgh. Those are the
Yes.
things that I do not miss about Pittsburgh.
So
So, so, but we're going to talk about Pittsburgh a little bit later on. But uh, uh, there's two things that, well, now you also participated in a mock draft, I believe, one day while before you went to the game. I think it was. Did didn't you? I thought you said that you had a, a mock draft that you participated
oh,
in.
I mean, there's. This is a very
I,
busy.
I,
This is a very busy
yeah,
time of year, James. This
yeah. I know
is,
between you and Mike, well, you know, we'll,
so yes, it
we'll get
is.
into that too.
So recently concluded the first 7 round mock. But this one was just like a Twitter mock. But the weekend prior to the actual NFL draft, we do a live via TalkShoe, and then StreamYard helps out a little bit. But it's a live 7 round mock spread out over 3 days, and that separates the men from the men who actually have lives. So it's it's an experience. This will be the 7th year I've done it, but that's not until April. But this is so I rank 300 or so 300 or so players each year, and this is where this gets. That's where I am now. I'm trying to get my 300 players ranked, and then I drop in on the spreadsheet, official heights and weights. So now, thanks to the HBCU Combine, I have some heights and weights on some of those guys. And then the combine, the NFL combine's coming. I'll get heights and weights on those guys, and then I'll drop in, 40 times, 3 cones, short shuttle, all that stuff onto the spreadsheet as I, get my 300 players all spiffy
Now,
and ready to go.
Now, is when you were talking about the combine, is this the same type of uh, combine and platform that they use in the NFL? 40 yard, 40, the different cone drills. Is this basically the same thing?
Well, I guess the term basically would be the operative term. Uh, I mean, it happens all at once in a very short amount of time. So you don't have, all the days spread out and the conversation sort of you grab a guy and you pull him over to the side and you talk to him real quick. So it's not quite the same. And the real difference was it was freezing cold. So New Orleans doesn't usually get that cold, but I think it was in the 30s.
Yeah,
And so we didn't have
surprisingly enough, we have had a record cold front
yeah.
here in California, and it has been 33, just just a smidge above freezing out here in California, in San Diego, no less. People are mad. I mean, it's like people just don't know how to handle this type of
No,
cold.
no,
But I
no,
mean,
no, they don't, James. So because of this, they weren't expecting it. They didn't have like the heating, whatever, the fans, whatever, the heating fans. So the guys were cold. And so some of them declined to work out. Some of them worked out, but didn't do all the drills because of it. And some of the guys did do everything, but their numbers weren't anywhere close to what they would be if they weren't cold. So hopefully, NFL scouts who saw some numbers that weren't great will hopefully go to these guys' pro days and see what their real numbers would be like when they've actually had a chance to, well, one, not be freezing cold. Running at top speed when you're cold, James, is not ideal, as you may have heard. So it was not a great. That part was not like the actual NFL combine.
well, at least they didn't have at least they weren't wet and had on an 80-pound backpack. I mean,
Yeah, now that would be a different kind of event. That's a different kind of draft, James. There's no sign. Well, I guess there is sort of a signing bonus, but it's not the same. But yeah, so that was a good experience. Only in that they got to meet, NFL people and talk to them and things like that. The actual workout was kind of rough. The good news, like I said, is the actual game, guys got to really show who they were and what they could do, and a couple of guys really helped themselves. And I think maybe as many as 4 guys, somewhere between 2 and 4 guys who were there, I think end up getting drafted.
Now, did we see Dion or a Tennessee State coach?
Eddie George. I did see Eddie George. I did not see Dion, but Dion, if I know Dion at all, was out there recruiting. Dion is trying to essentially out-recruit not just HBCUs. He's trying to out-recruit everybody. He wants, I know he's in those like fun commercials with Coach Saban, but he wants to take Saban down. He wants to have the best recruiting class in the country. Is that realistic? Probably not. He's still trying to do it though. Dion, say what you want about him. That man wants to out-recruit everybody. That is his goal. He wants to have the most impressive class in the country, not in HBCUs, in the country. And getting Travis Hunter doesn't hurt, right? What many people consider the number 1 prospect in the country, I don't think anybody saw that coming. Well, some people, let me rephrase that. Nobody in the mainstream saw that coming. I was hearing whispers through various back channels that Travis Hunter, when he did it, people were saying it was a courtesy visit because he's a big Deion Sanders fan. I heard through back channels there was nothing courtesy about it, and that the kid was seriously considering coming to Jackson State, and obviously he did sign there.
Well, a couple of things before we get into the heart of the show. There was a big settlement, $24 million for the women's soccer team.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that? When we talk about equality and pay, maybe this is the first step.
So my first sort of exposure to this kind of thing goes all the way back to the legendary Billie Jean King. As you might remember, Billie Jean King, was a dominant tennis player in the 60s and early part of the 70s. And she constantly kept mentioning to anyone who would listen, why are we getting paid so much less than the men? And part of it literally goes back to you guys will just get married and your man will, husband will provide for you kind of stuff. I mean, it was, people forget just how recently just wildly open sexism was just completely normal. So to me, it sort of goes back to that, all the way back to Billie Jean King. And from that point forward, for now, we're talking about really, I guess, 50 years, really. Over 50, really, working forward to get to this point where people will stop saying, well, but it's only women's wrestling, but it's only women's archery, but it's only women's curling, but it's only women's football, only women's basketball, only women's soccer, only women's whatever, hockey. The work, the effort, the sacrifice is the same. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. There's no one who worked harder in any sport than Dominique Dawes did at hers. I mean, the thought that you're going to say, well, but because of your internal plumbing, because you are able to, bear children or whatever the ludicrous logic is, you deserve less. It would be laughable if it weren't sad. So it is, to me, too little too late, but I'm sure they'll take it because a win is a win is a win. I want us to get to the point where the expectation is that people who work in whatever profession, who do work especially at the very top of their profession, deserve to be compensated like people at the very top of their profession, no matter whether they be black, white, purple, men, women, whatever your gender, whatever your color, your categories, whatever. If you are the best, then you deserve to be paid like the best. Period. New sentence.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of amazing that it took this long, but there are some struggles that have taken longer. But that's another show.
Yes, it's a Monday show.
Yeah, that's definitely for a Monday show. But last week was mostly dedicated to the All-Star game. But there's a couple fun little questions here I just thought I'd throw out before Mr. Fann comes in a few minutes here. We'll be flat. He says, just watch us after the break. And I'm watching them tonight. And right now, Boston is kicking that butt. It's 81-63 with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Unless something drastic happens, I mean, you're looking at 100 points by the end of the third quarter.
Yep.
This Bill. I mean, I come from a a generation where right now this would probably be the end of the game score,
right.
And there would be blood in the bleachers, and no one's coming down the middle, and an entirely different game of basketball.
It was an entirely different game. Yeah, I hate to tell you, Jim Luskatoff's not walking through that door. Clyde Lovellette isn't walking through that door. Larry Siegfried, James, isn't walking through that door. The days of true basketball thug are pretty much over.
Pick and pop has a whole new meaning than it did. But anyway, what do you think about the enthusiasm? Now, there is a possibility that New York is going to lift its Band-Aid in a couple weeks here. But right now, he's only scheduled to play 8 out of the last 20 games.
Correct. Yes.
So, I mean, what do you think about this? KD is still off the court.
Right.
Well, we'll talk about Ben in a minute, but do you see reason for this enthusiasm? To me, and they're going to be dangerous as a play-in, but if this is not a team that you might not want to see in the play-in, but do you consider them the cream of the crop in the East?
No,
Well, you,
no.
you well you said if not, yeah, you, you- but
Um,
but
here's
now
the good news.
you
Here's the
you
good
you
news. They can
talked
now play
about the
five
James
on five
Harden.
on defense, James. There's the
Yeah.
good news.
Okay. Because you talked about the James Harden
I
version
did.
of the
Well,
Nets.
like I said, so first of all, if you're looking for a reason to rejoice, Brooklyn Nets fans, you can now at least play 5 on 5 on defense. However, I can find no reason to expect that this team is going to, let's say they end up at some point playing the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs. I can't think of a logical reason to think that the Bucks would not dispatch them in 5 games. So maybe six. But my point is, though this team is in slightly better shape in certain ways than it was before, they weren't one trade away or one anything away from fixing their various issues. They are headed. I believe in the right direction. I will say that much. I believe they're headed in the right direction. They're headed towards being a more well-rounded team that's capable of winning more than one way. Because when your team is built around aging superstars who are still getting the ball like superstars, they're not being Iguodala, right? Iguodala used to be a 25 point a game scorer. He was more than willing to accept the part-time player role and an energy guy role in order to get rings. That's not what their situation is. A lot of their best players are their oldest players, and as I've said on many occasions, that's not an ideal situation. You don't want your best players to be your oldest players. You don't mind if one or two of them are, but if all of your best players are your oldest players, you're going to be in trouble because guys don't, playing basketball at the highest level is not really an older man's game. You can play basketball like CYO basketball until you're 80, 90, whatever. But we're not talking about CYO. We're not talking about knocking a few down with your friends and shooting a few hoops. I mean, we're talking about explosive athletes on sometimes very tough schedules. I mean, here's the thing. The Nets, I think the Nets will at some point hit a little hot streak. If that's what you're asking, they're going to look better than they look now. They're going to hit a little hot streak. They'll win 9 out of 11 or whatever. But seeing them overcome, that team, right, with, Giannis Antetokounmpo and an improving group of, surrounding players. I'm still not 100% sold on their bench. That's my only concern, right? I said this last year. I predicted them to win anyway, but I was a little scared of their bench. And see 2020. Almost nothing has changed in the way that team works together, fits together. They've been one or two little back of the rotation guys come and go. But I mean, I do feel like if you're asking, that they will contend. They'll be fun to watch. But I mean, what was it that you'd see about this team that makes you say, "Oh yeah, they're going to be championship contenders"? Like not just contenders, but to win a game, maybe two. I don't see that.
And when you look at their makeup, I mean, here at the last minute they picked up Gordon Dragic, and I mean, other than his age, uh, eh, he's another guard, okay. But when you look at the lineup, they don't have another forward other than Kevin Durant. It's all guards and centers.
Right.
And so as you say, look at the bench. So yeah, but here's
Yeah.
another team that really perplexes. Well, it doesn't perplex me, but it does seem like they should be in a much better place, and I'm talking about the Pelicans. The Pelicans have went through numerous lineups that they've had some great talent, and a lot of us uh, had doubts about Zion coming into the pro game and what he could contribute. But listening to the media, and Zion was the media darling, But I don't care how good you are. If you're not on the court, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
And first we talked about his weight, but we haven't, for the contract that he was paid. I mean, if you compared the court time, it would be almost a travesty. But anyway, they picked up CJ McCollum, and you would think that Zion, being quote unquote a leader of the team, or at least the star of the team in uh, New Orleans, that he would reach out, or his people would reach out to C.J. McCullough, and as the veteran, and as a teammate.
Right.
But it seems like that hasn't happened.
Well,
And
yeah.
Redick, uh, J.J. Redick, has a really scathing, uh, some really scathing things to say about Zion's pattern of behavior while he was a Pelican. Has Zion become an albatross, team albatross around the Pelicans' neck?
I won't go quite so far as to say that. What I will say is when you are a short but extremely heavy power forward who struggles with certain parts of the game, at least in part because of just, the sheer size of, what a human being is. And when I think about how this team is put together and what they're best at, right? So some of the things that this team is best at are things that ... And there's always some sort of thing happening. Oh, we went with a different player. Oh, somebody got hurt, whatever it is, right? There's all these excuses for why it took so long. But for me and to me, when I look at the NFL landscape, one of the things that concerns me most, or which I guess, even the NBA, right? Even the NBA, where there's loads of black people of various sorts spread throughout the league, front office, coaching, and playing. Yes, that's the other thing. When a team is, we talked about this. There's ways to construct a team. You can say we're going to get young talent, and maybe we'll sprinkle in the occasional need free agent. You can say we're going to go after the biggest possible names. We're going to save for years. It'll be terrible for years if we have to have a chance at player X. They have a chance at drifting this player and then finding another player in free agency. And there's no one right answer, but there certainly are some wrong answers. And when you literally do not have the ability to, negotiate or pay for something, and despite having plenty of money, it really puts it all in perspective about what teams are and aren't. But I want to make light of actual clinical depression. And the last thing I want to make sure I touch on is we talked about it before, but I'll bring it up again. There is no whatever you're saying, no floor, no corollary for certain players. Zion is to some extent a sui generis. I mean, people mention Oliver Miller. I mean, I understand the comparison. Oliver Miller did get up to 312 pounds and was a shorter center. But he wasn't Zion. He wasn't an explosive player. He wasn't a player that people – there's the only situation where people would have, both a Tanner Mordecai and a Reggie Roberson jersey. One is if they, clearly not they go to, SMU, but they probably, I would be willing to guess that somebody might have even maybe taken a shot at them or not. But here's the point. Unless and until there's drastic changes in weight training and, maybe even, strong arm robbery. I mean, there's all kinds of things that when you look at Zion's career that have not come together the way that so many people were expecting. I mean, I didn't dislike him. I didn't have him as high as a lot of other people, but I had him in the teens. And, the things you can't help but notice is his ability to just flat out run, right? I've never seen a player that size run that fast. I'm not sure if I want to. But if I do, then it's signs that, the alien invasion is coming. Last piece of, I think people mostly have a pretty good sense of what to do in terms of, defensive ends, where to play them, how to play them, all that kind of stuff. And if you do want, to have someone take a look at them if you're worried about trade value or whatever it is, happy to help. But Zion has been in the 280s, 290s. I know COVID-19 didn't help him. I know there have been other things that didn't help him, and he was fighting through a minor injury on top of the other stuff. Get that 100%. But if you're going to take that jump as a player, where people talk about you, maybe not 5, but top 10, at least currently playing right now. If anyone has him in their top 10, they're saying we trust this one year more than 2 years, right? This one team looks much more like a team that can figure out what to do with me or whatever it is. The other two teams, they're dead. Yeah, they're opponents, right? Yeah, but I worry about those that truly, truly, truly believe in in lots of things, but in building around certain types of superstars. I'm not saying you can't build around a superstar because almost every team had a superstar or two, but the problem is when you have to get to one that you don't have here or access to here. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but Zion is going to struggle because it's hard to be that heavy.
Yeah, I understand his problems as a player, but I think it goes a little deeper than that. Once again, this I think it goes to the advice and the the people that are supposedly in his entourage. Maybe, but I think that's more of a problem, even more so than his weight. I think he needs to um, become a team player. That's why I meant whether or not he was Team Albatross. But speaking of, and this is also a mental issue, and it kind of leads right into the next question because we're all wondering when Ben Simmons is going to make his appearance. The Nets still really have no timetable for him to return, and some are saying he'll be back in a few weeks. Well, when you talk about the mental status and facing your demons, uh, the Nets will be playing Philly March 10th. Do you think for him to get rid of those demons, he should play in that game, March 10th?
I mean, there's a lot to like, right? We've talked about this. The way that anything is presented nowadays is often, polarized or exaggerated or whatever. But I like a lot of what I've seen. I just think, like anything else, there's need for categorization, improvement, and polishing. But that's true to me of every player, period. I mean, Jerry Rice never got tired of working, and that sort of gives you a chance. If you're one of those people who every day, not all day, but every day, every morning, every whatever it is, boom, I'm doing this, then I'm doing that, then I'm doing that. And once you develop good habits, it makes it harder to develop bad habits because you've only so much space, right? Um, so if you are at some point might be a fan of the game or a fellow player or whatever, and you recognize him, I'll be happy to share.
Um, Final in NBA, it seems that once again we have uh, rumors out here about a possible divorce between LeBron and the Lakers. Um, and a lot of it has to do with, of course, this season, the underachieving of the Lakers, if that's what you want to call it that. Uh, but there is talk, and from based on some things that LeBron said, that you know that maybe he might go back to Cleveland. But I remember some of the things that were said when he left Cleveland. And I mean, of course, the speculation is that he wants to play with his son and whatnot. But do you see LeBron? Do you see the Lakers trading LeBron or LeBron going back to Cleveland? I'm sure he has a no trade clause in his contract. I mean, come on, he's been in the league what 20 years. It doesn't, new kids on the block come in with damn near no trade clauses. So, what's your thoughts on that? Will we see LeBron in a different uniform again?
I mean, it's not 100% that he won't, but I think it's about 99%. And I give his team credit for understanding that you're going to get more and better publicity from that. I don't know, 15 seconds or whatever long it was. It's going to equate to millions and millions. So yes, they won. They won big time.
Uh, Jeffrey, how are you doing this evening? Glad to have you on the show.
I'm doing good. James, Bill, good to see you guys again.
Always a pleasure.
We were just making a little speculation here about LeBron. Do you think that we'll see LeBron in another uniform and this year or next?
I do. I think he'll be playing it because I think he wants to play with his son. It sounds like. So I think when he said that, or when he alluded to that, I think he meant it.
Okay, but what about all the things that were said when he left?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean that's true. Um, but when I saw those comments about his son, I said I think he's going to play a couple more years. He's made it a priority. It sounds like, and I think that's a goal that he's targeting. And who knows, he may end up back in Cleveland. He sounds like he left that a little bit open too.
Yeah, that was the question. Would he end up back in Cleveland? Because he did mention, sort of alluded to it, and of course he is from Akron, which is right down the street, only 68 miles away. So, you know, yeah. Jeffrey, but the basketball season has started.
yeah.
The football is over, and now it's almost, as was the title, almost time for March Madness. We're what
Yes.
about a month away? Well, a little less than that, about 3 weeks away, I guess, 2 3 weeks away before we started down. But Jeffrey, before why don't you give us a breakdown of the ACC?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the ACC, as far as real contenders in March and how far they can go. I mean, it basically starts and ends with Duke. Um, I, they haven't quite been as dominant as I expected in conference play. They've had a couple hiccups, losing to Miami, uh, Florida State, Virginia, especially the Miami and Virginia games at home were kind of surprising. I know they had some injury issues here and there, um, and I think we'll get into it a little bit more about Duke if they're a contender. But um, they've definitely been the class of the conference thus far. When they're right, they're as good as anyone in the country, and probably a good 7 to 12 points better than anyone in the ACC. I think Notre Dame has been really solid for the last couple months. They can always point to that win over Kentucky. They played some other really good teams, really competitive. Struggled when they had their opportunity against Duke, but their guard play is pretty solid, and I think they've proven to be the best, the second best team in the conference because of their consistency. Then you look a little bit deeper down the road. Miami's had moments. They're very good with their guard plays with Wong and Moore and Auguste. So I like their backcourt. Sometimes they struggle a little bit on the defensive end, especially inside. But Miami's a good basketball team. Wake Forest has played above their weight class. I don't think Wake Forest is really that talented a team, but the transfer Alondis Williams, his name's in the mix for ACC Player of the Year, and Steve Forbes has done a great job in his first year, and they're probably going to make the NCAA tournament, despite not being as talented as some of the other teams. I think even in the ACC, struggled with Clemson last night. I mean, they still have lapses defensively. That could have been a wake-up call for them. That was a really undermanned Clemson team last night without PJ Hall or Hunter Tyson, and to come out of there with a win was, I mean, it needs to be a little bit of a wake-up call for Wake Forest. I went to that game and they struggled. They really struggled defensively. Wake Forest did. I mean, they could still shoot the ball, but if they really want to be the team that they've showed most of the year, they're going to have to pick it up on the defensive side of the ball. North Carolina, I kind of left North Carolina left for dead after that Pitt loss last week. I mean, that just came out of absolutely nowhere against a not very good Pitt team at home in Chapel Hill.
Break
And I was
my
like,
heart. You break
yeah,
my heart. I talk about my Pitt team, but
I mean, that was a great win for Pitt, but boy, I thought that might have been I mean, that could have derailed North Carolina's season completely. But they go on the road, they win at Virginia Tech. They win the other night, won a couple games in a row, and I think they've kind of righted the ship. I think they'll make the tournament. You got Virginia Tech and Virginia trying to do enough to sneak in to the tournament, but they're going to really have to go on a run, I think, at the end of the season, and then after those teams, it's pretty much a mishmash of I had to be honest, it's pretty mediocre basketball, after about the top six, and even after Duke, it's not the quality we expect in the ACC. That's for sure. I mean, there's some really poor teams. I'm sorry, Pitt's been struggling, but my Georgia Tech team, they're awful. They're looking at a historic ACC champion to last place in the ACC for the first time since 1977. A Virginia team that pulled the trick. So they're Josh Pastner wins the ACC and now is in last place in the conference. So his nice run was short lived.
well, I got to ask you, it, the way you mentioned North Carolina, it was almost, you know, in passing.
Yep.
Usually, North Carolina is one of those, I mean, especially my generation. I mean, North Carolina, Duke, North. That's all we heard. You know, what
Yeah.
what 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 has happened to North Carolina as far as recruiting and talent these last couple of years? Uh, we used to all blame it on the one and done, but I mean, I think it maybe goes deeper than that. I mean, North Carolina, all you had to do was uh, North Carolina head coaches on the phone, and a player was signed and he was there. You never talked about all those teams before you talked about North Carolina. What's kind of happening there?
Yeah, I think especially the last couple years of the Roy Williams era. I mean, pretty won a national championship pretty recently, but the last couple years they couldn't run the type of offense that we were used to seeing from Roy Williams. When he had his like '05 national championship teams and '09 and the last couple years, they didn't have like a Rain Felton point guard who could just get them in transition and get teams up and down the court before opposing defenses, um, set up. And they never were really that good defensively under Williams, but not being able to play the type of transition basketball he wanted to play, not having the point guard play that he needed to make them elite, I think was the first um, the first sign. I mean, they were still recruiting pretty well, but you know, not the kind of kids that they were still going to Duke and Kentucky, and then I think it was the Kessler kid who ended up at Auburn when during the coaching transition this year. I think it's again. a little bit of a lack of point guard play, even with Baycock and a huge front line. I mean, they still struggle, at times being consistent. Um, but I don't think I think it's not time to give up on North Carolina at all. I mean, Hubert Davis is putting together a good class. I think it's very positive that he was able to kind of circle the troops after that Pitt loss, and I think they're still probably the second most talented team in the ACC. Um, and I mean, at times they look like a Sweet 16 team. That I've been saying it on Twitter. They either look like a Sweet 16 team or a first round NIT losing team. Um, but you're starting to see a little bit of consistency the last couple of games, and we'll see if North Carolina, you know, can build on that as they go into March. I think they'll be in the tournament. I mean, this is still a team that won 20 games. It's going to win, probably 24, 25 games in a down North Carolina team. So, in a down North Carolina season, I think North Carolina is going to be okay in the long run, though. I think Hubert Davis they've been inconsistent, but I think he's shown enough that it's not time to give up on him or to panic if you're a North Carolina fan. I think North Carolina is going to be fine in the long run.
Now, a team that has been in the mix, and we've talked about them in recent years in tournament play, but it seems like once they get in the tournament, they haven't quite played up to their potential. And I'm talking about a matchup that where usually we talk about North Carolina and Duke. This year it's North Carolina. I mean, excuse me, Duke and Virginia. How good is that Virginia team? And was that a fluke? Them beating Duke, or was that or was that the real Virginia team?
Um, I don't think it was a fluke. I mean, Tony Bennett is an outstanding basketball coach. He won a national championship. I mean, honestly, they've probably been the class of the ACC the last 5 or 6 years overall. But he doesn't have a talented team this year. I mean, they're really limited, especially from the perimeter. Kihei Clark and Beekman are nice. They're nice players, but they're not the kind of guys you can that are should be the focal point of your team and try to be top 25 caliber, for example. So I think that was a game in Cameron where Tony Bennett just had a great defensive game plan and got Duke a little bit confused. They were very good down the stretch. Still Kihei Clark's a savvy point guard. He knows how to win, be in big games. I don't think it was a fluke at all, but I think what was really the true Virginia team was what we saw earlier this week when they lost at home to Duke. Um, they were in that game all the way till the end, but they couldn't really overcome Duke's talent level. And because they have to play nearly perfect to win a game like that. And then they also won. They've beaten Providence. So from time to time, Tony Bennett can get his team to play at a level that can knock off a really quality basketball team. But overall, that's that they don't have a ton of talent. They're not great from the perimeter, and they're probably a fringe NCAA team at this time. Their net ranking is in the 80s, so they got quite a bit of work to do on that. I think Tony Bennett's a good enough coach that Virginia will be back in time, but this year his team is just simply not very talented.
Any coaches on the hot seat?
I think if you're going to look at a coach who's on the hot seat, it's probably Jeff Capel there at Pittsburgh. Um, he's been there 4 or 5 years, and they just haven't been able to turn the corner, make the NCAA tournament. They've been kind of stuck near the bottom of the conference. It looked like they were starting to play a little bit better basketball here in recent weeks, but then they come back and they lose to a really poor Georgia Tech team on Saturday night, and there was just really a kind of a listless effort by Pitt, and that's what frustrates Pittsburgh fans so much. I mean, they go down to Chapel Hill, play great, and then they come back against a dead in the water Georgia Tech team who has been awful most of the last 2 months, and then they end up losing on their home floor. Um, I think Capel's seat is probably the hottest. There's a lot of dissatisfaction down in Raleigh with Kevin Keats, who's been there 5 years, hasn't been to the NCAA tournament. They're down there at the bottom of the conference too. I mean, I know they lost Manny Bates early in the year, but it's been a really disappointing season. And I think a lot more was expected out of Keats, but by this time, so I think Keats is on the hot seat. Um, Josh Pastner still has an ACC title recently, so his seat, he gets some equity with that win, but last place in the conference is last place in the conference, so he'll he'll probably be here next year. I don't have any. I'm quite sure he'll still be in Atlanta next year, and with the direction of the football program, they got bigger issues with Jeff Collins, but um, there's some frustration at Georgia Tech, because you can kind of look at what Pastner's done over his tenure and say, did he catch lightning in a bottle with Jose Alvarado for 3 weeks, and then, been kind of mediocre during most of the rest of the tenure. I mean, during the COVID year, he was over 500 in the ACC, but that team still wasn't going to make the NCAA tournament. This year's not going to make the NCAA tournament, and he's got 0 recruits coming in next year. So, there's some concern there in Atlanta if he really managed to build anything off that ACC title, or if that was just kind of a one-hit wonder.
Bill, do you have any questions for Mr. Fann talking about basketball in the ACC? We might have lost Bill. Bill, I think we lost Bill there. Bill nodded out on us. Bill,
Long day.
Bill's just coming from New Orleans and covering the HBCU. I mean, combine. So,
Okay.
but uh, let's talk about what happened with the Michigan-Wisconsin game.
Yep.
And Juwan Howard, of course, was suspended for the rest of the season, uh, which turns out to be 5 games. Some people were calling for his firing. Some people were calling for a stiffer sentence, as far as that was concerned. But what did you, first of all, what do you think about the suspension itself? Do you think that that was a fair uh, equivalent of the offense, or do you think it should have been longer?
No, I think it was appropriate for what happened. I mean, that's a fairly lengthy suspension. I definitely think it sends the message to Juwan Howard that that's not going to be accepted. I think one of the things, I mean, what he did was absolutely 100% wrong, but he wasn't the only guilty party in what happened there. So if it had gotten maybe worse than the 5 game suspension, that might have been a little bit worse. But I think it was appropriate, also because he had issues last year with Mark Turgeon in Maryland at the end of that game as well. So a 5 game suspension is pretty serious. I think if there's a third time, he might be out of a job. I mean, he's really got to be able to look at himself at the end of these games and act in a way that doesn't get him in trouble. But at the same time, the Wisconsin coach and the coaching staff, they're not innocent free in this as well. So I think the punishment was appropriate, not too over the top, but enough to send a serious message.
Now, you know, of course, there were some, like I said, there were some extremes that people were talking about. They were talking about abolishing the handshake line at the end of the game. Yeah, I mean, this is something that has went on since I was a kid. I mean, I
Mhm.
remember in junior high school, after the game, we all lined up, shook hands, whether you won or lost. It was a show of sportsmanship. Now, there were times back during, I mean, Tom Izzo, I can re- I think at least one incident uh, doing a Michigan State loss. Uh, Certainly Bobby Knight, uh, Tarkanian. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of coaches I mean, uh, I don't want to say that kids have gotten soft or that this is a softer generation. I mean, all the old cliches, that you could possibly put up there, but you know, it just seems that as soon as there's the slightest provocation, the first thing we want to do is ban. I mean, this was at least this year an isolated incident. It just happened that it was between a school that gets a lot of media attention. If this had been Southwest Texas and versus San Antonio, we might not have ever seen it, or we might have heard about it because it's social media. But what's your take on that, Jeffrey? Are we too quick to want to ban things that because of a singular incident?
Yeah, I think so. When I saw that they were talking about banning, handshakes, um, that I thought that was just how many handshakes have we had, this season without any incident? Probably like 99.9%. Most of the time, the coaches are extremely respectful of each other and shaking hands and talking to the players and um, that was definitely not necessary. This was an isolated incident in a hotly contested game against two rivals that where emotions got better of the coaches and even some of the players. So that was just an isolated incident. There's no reason to get rid of the handshake. I mean, you're right, James. The the go-to it always is these days now, just to if something goes wrong with it, just ban it, even though like 99.9% of the time everything is just fine.
Yeah, like I said, it's bad behavior, but
Yep.
they're 5 games. Uh, I thought it was appropriate, but like I said, so sometimes we just seem to go to extremes in things that we want to do. Uh, Jeffrey, when you look at the landscape right now, we're a couple weeks from uh, serious tournament evaluation. But right now, looking at the basketball season, how do you see the ACC shaping up on a national level and against some of the top 10 or 25 top 25 teams?
I mean, I think Duke is probably the only ACC team that's capable of reaching the Final Four, um, and probably even the only one that has a kind of a I wouldn't say a remote shot, but they're probably a little bit on the outside looking in as a national championship contender. I mean, they're definitely talented enough. I mean, they've proven it when Gonzaga was on a roll earlier this year. They knocked off Gonzaga. They beat Kentucky. I mean, they're a really talented basketball team, but I'm not sure if they're physical enough to go through 6 games and maybe have to play in back-to-back games a Kentucky and a Gonzaga, and then maybe you're playing an Ohio State type team that they lost to, in the Elite Eight. I mean, they if they those are the three type teams that they're going to have to play to win a national championship. I don't see them making it. They're going to need a couple of breaks in a one game matchup against those kind of teams. They can definitely knock one of them off. But if they end up, in a series where they're having to play a couple physical teams in back-to-back games, or a 2 or 3 game stretch, that I don't think they quite match up physically with some of these kind of more mature um, basketball teams. But it's going to depend a little bit on how the bracket breaks out for them, whether they can shoot consistently from the outside. But when you have players like Banchero and Wendell Moore, uh, they're definitely capable of getting to the Final Four and having an outside shot at a national championship. Beyond that, it's pretty thin. We talked about North Carolina. When they're right, I think they can get to a second weekend in the NCAA tournament. I mean, if they get to the NCAA tournament and they're a 10 seed and they're playing a 7, they get to a number 2 seed or a number 3 seed, in a one game one off matchup. They're capable of knocking off a higher seeded top 15 team, but they're definitely not built for an extended run. They're probably, well, I think there are a couple teams that are capable of getting to the second weekend. I think Notre Dame is with their guard play. I think North Carolina can. I think Miami with their guards who they have multiple scorers has a chance to reach the second weekend. Wake Forest is a good basketball team, but I think it would be a stretched. They're going to have to play way above their talent level to get to the second weekend. So it's really about Duke and maybe a couple of upsets, and another team or two in the ACC can reach the Sweet 16, but it's definitely not a vintage ACC year.
Yeah, I think, let's see, Duke is ranked seventh in the AP poll and sixth in the coaches poll. And other than that, it's pretty much barren as far as the ACC. What do you think about the returning Baylor team?
Uh, I mean, I've watched Baylor a little bit. I mean, they're definitely not quite the team that they were. Um, they've for stretches they look like they could be the best team in the country. I know, in December and early January, I thought I was like, man, this team looks like they can repeat. Um, but they've stubbed their toe here and there. I'd kind of put them in the class with Duke, a team that's capable of getting to the Final Four, um, capable of making a deep run, but probably a little bit on the outside looking in of your top tier national title contenders. Um, right now, I still look at Gonzaga. I think they're, absolutely super well coached by Mark Few. They're on a mission. I mean, they were pounding teams back in November. I remember. I think I saw a stretch where they knocked off like 2 or 3 top 10 teams by double digits before they ran into Duke. So I look at them as like the odds-on favorite. Auburn is really outstanding. Kentucky seems to be, hitting their stride. And when they went into Kansas and just blew out the Jayhawks, that's maybe arguably the best win in the country this year. What they did against them. Purdue, as at times, looked like a top, top 3 or 4 team. I kind of put those 4 or 5 teams a little bit ahead of Baylor and Duke.
Um, if you had to, at this point, Jeffrey, who would be your player of the year in the ACC?
Yeah, that's definitely been up for some debate.
I thought
Alondis Williams,
I thought I put you on the spot there.
yeah, Alondis Williams, for what he's been able to do at Wake Forest is definitely, up there. Um, Paolo Banchero at Duke. I think if he can finish strongly, will be in the mix for that. Probably at the moment, I'm still would lean with Alondis Williams at Wake Forest right now for Player of the Year.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, hey, thanks for coming to visit us, and we look forward to having you back again, man. Why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening and tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Talking ACC Sports, blogging about ACC sports with a couple of other writers at allsportsdiscussion.com. Um, just looking forward to March Madness this year and having it, the way we're used to seeing it with fans, filling up the stadium. I mean, I think it's going to be tremendous here in my neck of the woods in the upstate of South Carolina. They're going to have the first and second round. Um, they're going to have the a first and second round games up here, here in the upstate of South Carolina. So I already got my ticket, so I'm looking forward to that.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, as it gets a little closer, we hope to have you back. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Uh, and you did. When is your next article coming out on ACC Sports?
Yeah, I mean, we usually put out something daily on there concerning the ACC. We just put out our power rankings tonight. I think you already tell from the discussion, Duke's number one on that list. Notre Dame, um, Miami. We've got Miami and North Carolina now in the top four. And yeah, check out the rest of the rankings.
All right, Jeffrey. You have a great night, man. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always enjoy it.
Yeah. That was Mr. Jeffrey Fann. Always pleasure talking to Jeffrey about what's happening in the ACC. Hoping we can get Mike in here soon. We've kind of lost Bill for the time being, but we're going to talk a little football. And there's always a lot to talk about when it comes to the NFL. Uh, just because the season's over, there's a lot of things to talk about. Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, the draft, as Mike was talking about earlier, the combine. We look forward to the combine. Bill has already went to one combine, the HBCU combine, and that was an experience that we talked about a little earlier in the show. Uh, let's see if I can. All right. I was hoping we could get Bill back. Let's see. All right. Now, where's Mike? Let's see. Okay. Try and get Mike in, and we'll talk a little NFL, talk about this Colts a little bit, talk about some franchise tags. Um, who's going to do what in the draft? Let's see. All right. Well, anyway, there's Mike. There's Mr. Valverde. So we will get a chance to do a little NFL talk here. I see Mike is in the queue. Hello, Mike. How are you doing this evening?
Doing very good. And yourself, sir?
Doing well, doing well. We had bills passed out on us over there.
Oh no,
So, uh,
it's been a
he,
long week for him. I know he's been doing like a lot of the HBCU things and stuff like that.
yeah, he went down to the combine, and of course, you and Bill, I mean, remarkable men when it comes to the draft. Bill's already had a mock draft already.
Oh wow.
So I don't know. You the man of so many talents there in the dynasty leagues. Yeah, have you started drafting yet? I mean, for a guy, you have to have your playbook is already starting to be made up, right?
Yeah, we're probably going to be drafting pretty soon. Depends on when everybody pretty much gets paid, but usually I would say sometime after the draft, which in May, usually when it really kicks up. So I'll be doing 4 to 5 drafts per day. With like they're always long drafts, but I'll be working on 4 or 5 for it depends on if it's a startup or five rounds or whatever. Something's continuously
I
going on.
I see some. Hold on, wait a minute, Bill.
There's Bill.
Yep.
I saw some movement there. I think we have him back now. Uh, Bill, are you there, Bill?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. We missed you there for a while. So we're going to talk a little football now, and so let's kind of get started. We have Bill back, and we can kind of proceed here. So, but okay. Um, let's get the script up here. Okay. Of course, I'm going to start with a hiring that I don't think anyone foresaw because of the pending lawsuit. But my Steelers have hired Brian Flores uh, in a coaching position. Uh, and there's a lot of talk, of course. Well, now that he's hired, it kind of makes his lawsuit moot. The Steelers did it for the sake of the NFL. To keep the lawsuit from being relevant. But Mike, like I said, the lawsuit is still going. He refused to sign the non-disclosure
Right.
when he left the Dolphins. So, what is your take on the Steelers hiring Brian Flores?
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with who's the head coach there now, Mike Tomlin, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Brian Flores is a great defensive mind, and so and a great head coach. So I think it's a dual situation. And Brian Flores, I don't know if you saw with Brian Gumble, Real Sports with Brian Gumble, he had Brian Flores on and his lawyer team, and Brian Flores even admitted that I mean, it's part of it is because I'm black, but the other part of it, and probably the most important part of it, is because I'm a great defensive coach. I'm a great coach, and so I agree with that. I think he is, and has every right to be hired. So, and I'm glad that the lawsuit didn't go away either, because that would really be foretelling that it wasn't really just something that he just was bitter about. So I'm glad that that's still going as well.
Bill, what did you think about the hiring of Brian Flores by the Steelers and the pending lawsuit?
Well, the first thing that stood out to me was, attempting to create continuity, because there was, at least at that point, still generalized belief within the organization and even outside of it, to a lesser example, that they would, figure it out. They would click. They would, add, world class, or if not world class, then at least national class track and field athletes through, the BYU, not BYU, the HBCU
Bill,
combine players, or just players
Bill,
that stood out. Yes.
we're talking about Brian Flores and the Steelers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. I mean, it's great. I think it's a great opportunity for Flores, and I think that he's in a place where he will be treated, first of all, like someone who's a great coach, and I think he's, at least on the defensive side of the ball, he's one of the great coaches certainly around right now. I think that he's going to work his way into a situation where if he doesn't get to be an ex-coach again in the NFL, I think he certainly gets an opportunity to be, maybe just a notch below that in terms of like the, both personal and sort of professional commitment to reading and all the things that go with it.
I thought it was, I didn't see that move coming, but
neither did I. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I thought he would be out of coaching.
Me too.
For at least a couple of years,
right?
At least everyone would be afraid to hire him because of the lawsuit and whatnot. But I think once again, maybe it's by coincidence that the only black coach left in the NFL at this particular time hired a black coach that we thought would be blackballed by the NFL. So it's interesting. When you talk about just the makeup of the Steelers and the organization. Steelers were one of the, I believe, the first team to hire a black coach in the NFL. So it's not something that's not part of the history as far as them crossing those lines. So I'm very proud of the organization, and we'll have to wait and see what happens with the lawsuit.
And that takes guts all around. Not only for the organization to say, okay, well, I mean, we're siding with Flores here because that's kind of what they're saying. And then not only that, but to go against the NFL is just crazy. So I admire the Steelers for doing this. You guys got a great defensive coach. So that defense is only going to get even scarier. So I definitely tip my hat to the Steelers and doing what the right thing is. And very few people do what the right thing is, especially when you're facing the monster of the NFL.
Yeah, it's it'll be very. I think it also had a lot to do with the Rooney name, and them being able to absorb the backlash if there was any to come, and also it's a certain amount of respect because the Steelers are one of the oldest organizations in the NFL.
Right.
So I mean, then how can even if you want to, even if you're a good old boy, we've been good old boys for a while too. That's also So when you look at the history of the league, you look at the history of the Steelers, they're kind of hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Bill, you back with us there, Bill?
Yeah, I was here the whole time.
Let's see. Okay, so let's get here to the Packers. Now, the Packers front office said this morning that they never promised Rodgers a trade. Of course, Rodgers says it's a lie, but you have to kind of, after looking at that corduroy suit, you kind of have to wonder about his judgment. But anyway, he says no. And they also, the Packers, Bill, do you think that the Packers are going to let him choose his spot where he wants to be traded? And are you buying that there's not going to be any drama caused by Aaron Rodgers this preseason, Bill?
There's a lot of things that I think will eventually come out, right? We talk about other things where you have a surface level that establishes things that the powers that be or whoever it is has decided that collectively these things are not true. However, I do believe that this particular step we're going to see multiple, and I personally think maybe policy, like there'll be players that signed on. I think some of them will probably drop out, but the vast majority will stick it out. That's what I believe.
What do you think about this Aaron Rodgers situation? I think let's see, $40 million over the cap. They did manage to free up almost $11 million a couple days ago, but that still leaves them about $28 million over the cap. 29. What do you think about this? Are we going to see Rodgers in a Packer uniform? He does have another year. Is he going to retire? What's your take on the corduroy man?
Yeah. Oh man, I think it's going to be a summer full of drama once again because he can't help himself. And I think it leans toward him leaving, but if he leaves, then it's got to be pretty soon because he's got to go to that other team, and that other team has got to get him the playbook, and he's got to learn the playbook. I mean, it won't take him too long, but he's got to have at least a month to get a grasp of what they're going to do. I think it's 50-50. I could see him leaving. Last year, I was like, no, this guy is a Packer. He's going to do one more year. But I also, this year, it's more 50-50 for me. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think if I had to make a decision, I think he stays as a Packer. If they sign Devontae Adams, if they can get Devontae Adams, I think that's going to be their first move is try to get Devontae Adams as tag him. And then once they tagged him, then Aaron Rodgers is going to probably lean on staying. But if Devontae Adams goes, Aaron Rodgers goes. He's not going to stay around because they have no shot. I mean, they have no receivers. So who's he going to be throwing to? So he'll just say, you know what, I'm out of here.
Well, we're going to talk about some franchise tags here in a minute as we get down. I think we've lost Bill again here.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can hear me or see me, but yeah, I'm just, trying to make sure that I can hear you, but it sounds like you're a little far away.
Okay. Anyway, let's see. Rumors. Some say that the 49ers are going to be forced to stick with Trey and Jimmy G because Trey is not coming along as everyone thought. He was projected to be the starter last year. Well, we saw that we saw that worked in the couple games that he showed up, and he's not at that level where we can say that he's going to be the starter that they projected him to be. So there are rumors that Tom Brady is thinking about coming out of retirement. And guess where he's thinking about going?
The Golden Gate Bridge.
Now, when I first heard this, I'm like, okay, well, it kind of makes sense. Okay, he wants to go to the 49ers. They're only, that, as they say, a quarterback away from being that team. But then I thought a little deeper. This is Tom Brady. And wasn't there a time when Bill Belichick valued Jimmy Garoppolo more than Tom Brady? Is this another one of those Tom Brady stick it to him? I left you and still won a Super Bowl, and now the guy that you thought was better than me and wanted to keep and trade me, I'm going to replace him and go and get another Super Bowl. So I'm thinking, and Bill always mentions this, the pettiness of greatness.
Yeah.
so I thought
Yep.
so I thought about that one more time. Yeah, that might be a Tom Brady move. You know, Giselle. Like I just need just one more vindication. Just one more. And then I'll hang him up.
Just get them all around, not only just one spot, but everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, because like I said, even though it made sense, it was just Jimmy G. I've gotten back at you, Bill. I left you and got my ring.
Oh,
You know.
all right.
Now I'm gonna replace the young gun that you thought was better than me because he's going to be traded or he's not going to be there, or at least that's the general observation. What do you think about that, Mike? Is it the pettiness, or is this, I want to do it for the hometown team?
Yeah, and definitely he's, I think, from San Mateo, so he was he'd be home. And then number one, number two, why not? I mean, like, if he has another shot at hitting Bill and they go to the Super Bowl or something, or even just as you mentioning, I'm now taking over the quarterback that you traded for or traded, away, and now I'm beating you again. So, and all those things are reasonable. Tom Brady's mind, I wouldn't doubt that he kicks those ideas around. And he still can play. I mean, he's still a good quarterback, and he still, in my mind, has at least 2 more seasons left in his body. So, yeah, I could see him coming back, and not just wanting to play Tampa Bay or just coming home and saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm home now. I just want to give it one more year, and then I'm done." And what a better way to do it than being home? I mean, O.J. Simpson did it when he played for the 49ers, so why not Tom Brady as well?
Wow. OJ, and OJ mentioned there. Let's see. Yeah, I guess we are after dark. Hey, Bill.
Yes.
What do you think about Tom Brady coming back and being the quarterback of the 49ers next year?
I mean, it's not a 0% chance, but it's in that between 2 and 0% chance. First of all, I think the man has retired, one, so he can devote the rest of his life to something other than just football. I think he's a guy with a lot of different interests and a lot of opportunities. I think he wants to take advantage of some. And then last but not least, he did sign paperwork. So it's easier to say, "Oh, we didn't mean it," than it is to say, you received, this, whatever this is, based on your commitment to this, to this piece of, history, basically. And that's what this is. He's been part of history.
But, as I mentioned earlier, Bill, the pettiness of Tom Brady, and you've always mentioned the pettiness of greatness. This is a chance to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you think about that end of it?
Was that aimed at me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think? That pettiness of getting rid of Jimmy G and proving that I can still outperform him.
Right. Got it. Well, I mean, I still think that the damage that man 45 has done will not be fully determined for years to come. But he's been notoriously uninterested in dealing with the fact that some of our communities are literally awash with weaponry of various types. And we don't have and really can't have strong, effective federal regulations. So with that in mind, what are you supposed to do? You have to turn to freedom riders.
I think we've lost Bill here.
A little bit.
I think Bill's on doing. I don't even have any of that stuff around. I'd like to find out where to buy that. Let's see. Anyway, yeah, maybe I can go to March and Ash tomorrow. Anyway, I can see this happening. Just because, as I said, the pettiness of one Tom Brady and thinking, hey, if I can go and get another ring, I don't think that we've ever had a quarterback win 3 Super Bowls. A Super Bowl under 3 different coaches. I can't recall that. I can't really recall.
No, I don't think. I mean, just winning 3 Super Bowls alone is.
Well,
tough.
I mean, yeah, he's already past the winning the 3 Super Bowls, but I mean, with 3 different coaches,
right,
3 different cities, at least 2 different systems, and he would probably be the oldest quarterback if he would win another one.
Oh yeah, for sure. Unless you count what's his name from the Raiders, but I don't know if did he have any snaps that season that they won? The kicker, I can't think of his name, but what's his name?
Yeah, Janikowski.
No. He was
the one before
Blanda. George Blanda.
George Blanda. Yeah. He George Blanda's.
And when they won the Super Bowl, their first win was at what, 79 against the Vikings, right? I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he played at least a game, a quarterback or whatever, but yeah. But I'm pretty sure Tom Brady's probably the oldest for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Demetrius isn't here this evening, so let's think about Bruce Arians is saying that he's talking about Blaine Gabbert as the option for Tom Brady. Are you drinking Bruce's Kool-Aid about the enthusiasm? I think you're in a little trouble down here in Tampa Bay. Myself, where's the running game? Blaine, are you really thinking that Blaine is going to be able to has the accuracy of a Tom Brady? I mean, I'm not saying that we're going back to the Jameis Winston days of for the Buccaneers, but what's your thoughts on the Buccaneers and Bruce's enthusiasm for 2022 and 23?
Well, speaking of cups and speaking of enthusiasm for Blaine Gabbert, I mean, I would be like alert all day long if I drank whatever optimism that Bruce Arians has for Blaine Gabbert. I mean, and it's all in the name, Blaine. I mean, like a Blaine could probably do taxes, but a Blaine is not going to be leading your team to any kind of playoff or Super Bowl. So I don't know what the heck he's doing, but I guess there's nobody else. Kyle Trask, I guess, isn't good enough if he's leaning towards Blaine of all people.
Yeah, I've kind of looked back at gunslingers, Billy the Kid, Jesse James. No Blaine.
No blame.
uh, uh, Bill, what do you think? Is Blaine Gabbert the man for the Bucks next year?
I'm not so sure that Blaine Gabbert is the man in the Blaine Gabbert household. I think that he'll still
Bill's
have an
awake.
opportunity.
Bill, we got the real Bill back. Come on, Bill.
I think that there's an opportunity. I mean, he's inexpensive. I mean, I'm sure he'll get a chance, but just handing him a job, I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
I think there'll be, another either maybe a player that they get in via free agency, maybe a draft pick, but the position will be handled, I think, by more than one player. But I think that eventually they'll settle on somebody. But I don't think it ends up being Gabbert, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking. I think it's definitely up in the air. I'm thinking that they have to bring somebody in to see what's going on, but we'll see. RG3. I don't know if you guys read what the Cardinals after. We talked about Kyler taking down all his stuff, related to the Cardinals, and then later putting it back up. Well, the Cardinals issued their own statement. I don't know if a lot of you guys read it or not, but RG3 said that the Cardinals had a character assassination of Kyler Murray, and it was low down and dirty. Bill, what did you think about the Cardinals' answer to Kyler Murray by saying that a lot of the things that he has a lot of faults of his own. What did you think about the Cardinals' response?
Well, I mean, they're not wrong. First of all, they're not. That's everything they said is verifiable, factual information. I think that teams, not just the team that obviously got him, but I think obviously there was a lot of people involved in the evaluation process who went too far in praising young Mr. Young, and I think they're in the process. Many of them are trying to, put the toothpaste back in the tube. I think you will see a bunch of, obviously a bunch of people who are maybe less familiar with how the law actually works, but a lot of those things will probably be adjudicated very quickly. But yes, I believe that LeBeau comes in, establishes very quickly who and what he is, and even take a little bit longer.
Bill. Yeah. We're talking about Kyler Murray and the Cardinals.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, Kyler Murray is an exciting prospect, or not a prospect, but he's an exciting player, and he's done some things in his career. Right? He's grown a little bit, not physically, but as a quarterback, as a leader. I think he's had a tremendous amount of potential. I also think that there's a little bit of friction that's already started to develop based on, I think, two things. One, I think some of the older players aren't always 100% appreciative of the way some young players, particularly younger players in leadership capacities, treat the game differently, frankly, than guys in the past. And then the second thing is, I think all the love and attention that he's received, and a lot of it is very much deserved. I think some players, obviously past players that we're talking about again, still haven't bought into him to some extent. But he's a super talented guy. I think he rights the ship, and I think he has great years going forward in Arizona.
What do you think, Mike? I kind of understand what Bill's saying. That Larry Fitzgerald type approach. Quietly assuming leadership, but that's not the way the young players of this era work. That's not that's not in the DNA of these younger players. They have social media. They have followers. They have their brand. What do you think about the Cardinals organization handle this in a way that you saw proper, Mike?
As far as the Cardinals organization, I disagree. I don't know exactly what was said, but I don't think that an organization should just lash out because a player is upset. That's just going to set a precedent of of everyone. Like, okay, so you're going to lash out at everybody who gets upset. Now, who isn't a disgruntled worker at certain times? So bosses should be upset with their workers just because their workers are upset. I mean, come on. So I don't know what was said, but to lash out on Kyler Murray because he erased his Cardinals, thing off his Twitter. I don't know who's more immature, Kyler Murray or this organization. And since the organization should be the more of the adult, then I'm going to go with the immaturity level lower for the organization.
Okay. We talk about whether or not teams are going to be re-signing some of the guys off their roster. Mike, I got to ask you, we know about the job that Jonathan Taylor is doing, but what about this guy, Marlon Mack? Are you guys going to re-sign him or not?
I doubt it. I don't even think Marlon Mack wants to be resigned. I think he wants out of there because, as we saw last year, I mean, he was coming off an Achilles injury, so that was part of it. But he could get some carries. He did get some carries when the Colts were looking to trade him because they were wanting to trade him. They just received no offers, but they let him run, and he ran. And so by the trade deadline had passed, they said, no, we'll just make you a healthy scratch. And what's his name? I can't remember the name off the top of my head. They used their backup running back that was not Marlon Mack. And so he wants out. I don't blame him. And I don't think the Colts want to sign him to a contract. They have the money, but I don't think they'll look elsewhere.
Let's see. Are you talking about Jackson or Hines? Hines.
Oh, Jackson. Yes, Deontay Jackson. Correct.
Okay. I was looking at the roster there. I'm like,
oh, thank you. Yeah, that sparked the memory.
Let's talk a little bit about the draft. Let's see. Is Bill with us? No, Bill is not.
Out.
Yeah, Bill is not with us. Okay. He's with us, but he's not with us. But that's okay. I see movement though. I do see movement.
There he is. Bill.
I do see movement though. Okay. So let's talk about the draft here. And Mike, I just want you to know, this is the Sports Crib. We talk about football all year long. Okay. From the combine to breakfast and eggs that what they eat in the morning. But we try to keep football in the conversation. At least most of us. So we'll find something to talk about.
Heck yeah.
It's kind of like we'll write the script and you can come. but we will be talking football.
That's all I need to know. We want to talk football? I'm here.
Okay. As you can see, there's I can make up a program for us to talk about. So, we could talk about draft picks. We could talk about, franchise tags, which we'll talk about later on. But let's talk about the draft right now. Of course, number one pick goes to the Texans. And they need help everywhere. So, Bill, are you with us, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay. Who did the Texans take with the first pick? I'm sure you've had a draft already.
Yeah, I mean,
right now, I have them taking an offensive, a tackle or defensive end. Excuse me, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're the number one pick.
Right. That's what first thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like, did they make a deal? Okay. So, I mean, I think you're right. And I think they end up taking Kayvon Thibodeau. It's possible they take an offensive lineman, but I really think Thibodeau fits what they're trying to do on defense. And I think he ends up having a great combine. And I think that's what helps him to push him back, to the top of the heap amongst the pass rushers.
Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I really think it's going to either be one of three players, Evan Neal, Thibodeau, or Aiden Hutchinson. I think it's just probably going to depend on the scouting combine and individual drills on whether Thibodeau moves ahead of Hutchinson or Hutchinson moves ahead of Thibodeau. But if I had to pick one, I think offensive tackle is probably the most important spot outside of rushing the passer. So you got to protect your guy, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's the face of the franchise, and so you don't want to end up like the Colts and have nobody protecting your man, and then have him sit out for injuries year after year until he retires. So I think Evan Neal is the correct choice there.
Detroit Lions have number 2. Did they take an edge rusher with the second pick and go in a different direction with number 32, or do they stay on defense, Mike, with those picks?
I think they go pass rusher. They'll need a pass rusher desperately. So whether that's Hutchinson or Thibodeau, again, that's going to come down to what the scouts say after the combine.
Bill, who do the Lions take at number 2? An edge rusher or somebody different?
Pass rusher. Yeah, obviously Aiden Hutchinson, if he's still available, I think that's where he finds his home. But if he's gone, they're looking at the other guys like possibly Thibodeau or, where they're picking, they'll either get their first or second choice, obviously. So I think they have a good chance to get their first choice.
Number 3, the Texans, Bill. Where do you start?
I think the Texans are the first offensive player off the board. I think it's an offensive lineman. Maybe Charles Cross, but somebody. I think he's the first offensive player, and I think they go offensive line.
What do you say, Mike?
I think what you'll see is back-to-back with Aiden Hutchinson and Thibodeau. So whoever of those go first, then Houston's going to go with the other guy. Right. I think those will be the 3 picks. Neal, Thibodeau, and Hutchinson will be, I think, the first 3 picks off the board. In which order will depend, of course, on the Jacksonville Jaguars and how they go. So we'll see.
Number 4, the New York Jets. They also had the number 10. Did they get help for Zach, or did they use both for strengthening up that horrible defense, Mike?
Yeah, I think it depends because they need help everywhere. So to them, whoever the best player off the board would be, because that's sort of a cliche statement, but when you have holes everywhere, that's pretty much what you got to do. I'm looking here at this draft and it says Kyle Hamilton. So it could be Ekwonanu, it could be who knows. But yeah, it's definitely pick the best player off the board and run with it.
Did I give you the Texans at number 3, Mike?
Yes, you did.
Yep.
Okay. Bill, who do you think the Jets go for at number 4 and number 10? Do they use both for defensive picks, or do they use one to get some help for Zach?
Yeah, I think one of them ends up being a receiver, and I think the other one is, a defensive lineman.
Bill, the Giants. They get number 5, and they also get number 7. Do they get help in the trenches on either side? I mean, they need linemen on both sides. They need offensive linemen. They need defensive linemen. Which way do they go with 5 and 7, Bill? Bill?
Yeah, I think that he ends up being, or whoever it is,
we're talking about the Giants. We're
Right,
talking about
right.
the Giants picking number 5, 5
Right.
and 7. Yeah.
I think that player, I mean, the Giants obviously have made an important and Giants friends who are Giants fans, long-awaited change, right? So Gettleman as well as Judge have been shown the door. And I think that this is going to be a tone setter pick. Ironically enough, with all the hog molly talk, they may still end up going offensive line there, but I think they end up getting one of the top corners. I think that, I guess it depends on who's still there, but either maybe Ahmad Sauce Gardner or possibly even Daryl Stingley Jr.
Stingley's a good one.
What do you think about the Giants at number 6, Mike?
Yeah, I think they go with a quarterback. I think maybe the first quarterback goes off the board here. Maybe like a Malik Willis, who needs some refinery, but has all the talent in the world. And so they give Daniel Jones his last shot, which is going to be his final shot regardless. And they start Daniel Jones. And if Daniel Jones gets hurt, just like Garoppolo, it's going to be like a similar Garoppolo situation. Garoppolo gets hurt, we put Trey Lance in. If he doesn't and we're winning and everything goes fine, just like it was last year, Garoppolo, Daniel Jones will be the quarterback. If it doesn't, then we'll turn to Malik Willis. So I really believe that this is where the first quarterback goes.
See, now, I had the first quarterback going at number 6 to the Panthers.
Yeah, that could be too. They're in the same boat. Yeah. So and that could be Malik Willis as well. If the Giants, do something different as wide receiver, because I don't know about that group. The best wide receiver is Kenny Golladay. So the first wide receiver off the board could easily be, whoever, Treylon Burks or Chris Olave or whoever is the first wide receiver off the board could go to the Giants. That would help. And maybe some defensive players, Devin Lloyd, someone like that. So I think it all depends on what the Giants do. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. That could be, Panthers could definitely go quarterback.
What do you think, Bill? Did the Panthers take the first quarterback off the board at number 6? Bill, we got Bill. Is Bill there?
Bill,
do you hear us?
You want the Giants?
No, the Panthers.
Oh, Panthers.
Do they take the first quarterback off the board?
I mean, they certainly could. I wouldn't. But I mean, I could see them doing it. I could see them, pulling the trigger. And if they do, I think it ends up being Malik Willis. I could see Willis, going there. I would. I still think it's a little early for any of the quarterbacks in this class. I don't have a first round grade on any of them.
So who would you take at? So who would you take at number 6 then, if you were the Carolina?
I thought I said I would take either Sauce Gardner or Daryl Stingley Jr. You said number 6?
Yeah, for Carolina, for the Panthers. I had asked you about the Giants before this.
Right. Okay. I thought you said number 6 there too. Okay. Well then, no, I guess that's number. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I could see either of those guys there. Other players I could see at 6 include people like George Karlaftis, if Charles Cross or Evan Neal is still available. I think either of those guys are in play as well. I think all those players could be. And then last but not least, sort of a dark horse would be maybe one of the wide receivers. If somebody fell hard in love with Drake London, or fell really hard in love with Garrett Wilson, or felt super hard in love with probably not Olave. I like Olave a lot, but I don't think he's the type that NFL GMs fall in love with that early. Maybe Jameson Williams. Yeah, but I think probably one of the guys I mentioned before, probably the most likely pick there.
Okay, the Falcons pick number 8, Bill. Who do they pick?
I think they take of the 3 big pass rushers, the one that's still available. So if Thibodeau and Hutchinson are gone, then it's Karlaftis, most likely. I think that's where he probably lands.
You agree, Mike, at number 8?
Oh, he's muted. He's muted.
Sorry. I do agree that if both, and I think they will be, both Thibodeau and Hutchinson will be gone, then Karlaftis is definitely the edge guy that they're going to pick. He's the third guy. I also think that they could go wide receiver here as well.
Yeah.
Just because who's their wide receiver? Russell Gage. I mean, that's all they have, unless Calvin Ridley decides to come back. So wide receiver is a huge possibility for the Falcons.
Yeah. I mean, if Ridley does come back, I still think they could go wide receiver.
Sure, absolutely.
Number 9, Mike, the Denver Broncos. Do they trade for a veteran quarterback, or do they take the best player available?
Yeah, I think it depends on Aaron Rodgers, because I think if Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay, it's going to go to Denver, so they won't need a quarterback there. If he doesn't, then Kenny Pickett would be the guy in Denver. I don't think that they can rely on Teddy Bridgewater anymore, or Drew Lock, or any of the other quarterbacks. So they're going to want someone who's stable. And even if Malik Willis is available, I still see them going with Kenny Pickett, just because Pickett is more fits the offense better. He's more polished now. They're like right there to win this, be playoff championship kind of team. And I don't think they want to wait on the quarterback. So because they would have to with Willis, they'd go Pickett.
What do you think, Bill? Do they trade for a quarterback, i.e. Aaron Rodgers, or do they take the best player available?
I think most likely they take the best player available. We always like to predict these blockbuster trades with, star quarterbacks moving. And I'm not going to say it never happens, because it has occasionally happened, but it happens very rarely. Blockbuster trades involving quarterbacks are, like I said, really fun to write about. They're great for your fan-sided articles and whatever, but they happen so rarely.
Right.
So I don't see it happening.
Bill, the Eagles have 15, 16, and 19.
Yep.
Do they go for a linebacker, an edge rusher, or do they collect trading value for 2023 by moving at least one or two of these trades? Positions?
I think the answer may actually be all of the above. I think that at least one of those picks gets turned into more picks. I think they maybe package some of the picks they do keep to move up. And then I think they use some of the picks they're getting back for one of the picks that they end up moving to someone else to pick one of those positions you just named. So I think they literally could do all of those things. That's the advantage of having a whole bunch of picks, right? This is a team that needs a lot of things. Their best players on defense are their oldest players on defense, and you've heard me say before why that's not exactly ideal. They want to find the heir apparent for people like Fletcher Cox. They want to find, there's a lot to be done. They still are trying to, they're going to want to find, they have a tight end, but I wouldn't be shocked if they like having two, right? They clearly like having two. I think they, at some point, probably not this early, but somewhere probably in the second or third, they're going to try to find that. They're going to try to find a linebacker. They've been looking for linebackers, since Jordan Hicks I mean, they've got work to do. A lot of places on defense and a couple of places on offense. They need a tackle too. I mean, no offense to Jordan Mailata, but he's not young Jason Peters. They need to find a young Jason Peters. So yes, I see them using various picks that they have to move both up and down. And then with some of the picks that they acquire in one of those trades, I see them, picking with their existing picks and with their picks to come, all the positions you named and some more picks, and some more positions.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, they have a lot of power right here, so they can pretty much decide on how they want to how to handle it. Do they keep all 3 picks? Do they trade 2 of them for next year and move up, in the draft to the top 5 spots or whatever? They have all the value. 15, 16, and 19 is just insane to have. But I do think they need a wide receiver coming out of here. An edge rusher would be nice. Maybe someone like Ojabo from Michigan, Chris Olave, someone to that effect. I think those are 2 of the prime positions that they're going to be looking at, is edge and wide receiver.
My Steelers picked number 17. Now, will this pick be included when we make the deal with Seattle?
To get Russell Wilson?
or do we take a quarterback that's available? What do you think here, Mike? What do the Steelers do with number 17?
Yeah, I think it's quarterback, unless all 3 of those guys are gone. But it should be someone should be there for him, whether it's Pickett or Willis or Hal. One of those 3 will be there for him. So I'm pretty confident that they'll go quarterback.
What do you think, Bill? Do we see Russell Wilson, or are we drafted for the future quarterback?
I mean, once again, sort of the dust off my earlier remarks. It's so much fun to talk about blockbuster trades that move, and I think I do agree that probably at least one quarterback we've discussed, or maybe not one we discussed. It's probably one of the ones we haven't discussed, actually, ends up being moved. But it's probably the ones that are not quite so headline-y, right? So I don't think it's Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Derek Carr, maybe. Even Garoppolo, though I don't think it's Garoppolo. I hope it's not Garoppolo. But a guy like that might be moved. But I still believe, even if you get a guy like Carr, that's not going to stop you from drafting a quarterback if you like a quarterback. I mean, that shouldn't. I'll put it that way. If you think to yourself, because you managed to get Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo, that you shouldn't take, if you like one of the quarterbacks so much, you shouldn't take them. Well, that's a mistake. The other thing I'll say is, if they like one of the other quarterbacks that we haven't mentioned so far, like Ritter or Carson Strong, and they want to address another position early, I think that also could happen, where they could address offensive tackle, defensive tackle. I mean, they still haven't adequately replaced Casey Hampton. The closest was John Barn Hargrave, and they let him go. So they have a lot of needs, actually. For a team that people think of as generally good, I mean, no offense to the centers they have on the roster now, but none of them are pouncy. They could use an offensive tackle, a defensive tackle, use a center. Crazy as it sounds, they could even use wide receiver. I think that at least one of the wide receivers who's on the roster now there's a trade that could happen. We can talk about blockbuster trades for quarterbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if they moved one of their existing, starting or near starting type wide receivers for draft picks. Say some team really values Deontay Johnson, or really values Mapletron, the kid from Canada, by way of Notre Dame.
Claypool?
Yeah, Claypool. Say some team really likes Claypool, and you can get a decent pick, and maybe a player and a pick, depending upon how much they like him, back for Claypool. And I don't know, a lot's in the air for. I mean, despite we usually think of the
Well,
Steelers.
let me throw this out here to you, Bill. Uh, and you say quarterbacks that we haven't mentioned because we've only mentioned Aaron Rodgers and Russell.
Right. I think those guys are harder to move than people realize.
But what about if we're going to use this as a bridge year? What about Mitch Trubisky?
I mean, I'm being honest. I've seen a lot of Mitchell Trubisky. It's hard for me to work up a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for Mitchell Trubisky.
No, I'm not. Let's kind of get the scenario here.
Okay.
A 1 year contract for Mitch.
Wow.
While we have another player developing, whoever we pick for quarterback.
Sure.
I'm sure. I'm sure when you talk about dealing, maybe we'll deal Mason Rudolph, or Dwayne Haskins, but Trubisky for 1 year, because it's only going to be a 1 year a contract. It's not, but as a bridge until either we develop a quarterback for the next upcoming season, somebody that we can get on the cheap, not have to give up any draft picks for. He'll probably be a free agent. We can give him a minimum contract. But what do you think about a Mitch or some of the quarterbacks that won't be playing next year? You mentioned Denver,
right? Drew Lock, right? Yeah. I mean, say the Washington Commanders, their first pick is one of the quarterbacks, and then they're open to moving Heineke. Yes, I mean, if you're looking at one of the mid-priced, younger veterans, right? I could certainly see that happening. That, I believe, is much more realistic than one of the superstar quarterbacks that people love to talk about in their fan-sided articles. I think that's much more realistic and much more likely to happen. I still think they could draft, even if not super early. I think they're drafting a quarterback at some point in this draft. I do believe that will happen. I don't think it'll be one of the first-round quarterbacks, though. I think that just sort of looking at the Steelers' approach, I guess, for life we're putting it, I think that they would like to build up around whoever it is they draft next year. I think that they, like many people in the NFL, will decide to keep their powder dry quarterback-wise this particular year, unless, once again, one or two teams may fall in love with one of the guys who's out there. I think somebody might fall in love with Malik Willis. Heck, somebody might fall in love with Matt Corral even. But one or two of these guys, somebody may make a surprising move. Surprising as in, taking them earlier than people might project. Because I wouldn't take any of them the first, as I said before. But teams see things differently from the way I see them. But yeah, I could see one of the younger, mid to low priced, free agent rookie quarterbacks being signed as a bridge. Yes, I can see that happening. Well, not rookie, but young veteran quarterbacks being signed.
Yeah, there's several of those out, as you mentioned. And then there's the guy from the Raiders. I can't. My retrieval of names is really bad right now. And so there's 3 or 4 guys out there that could be a bridge quarterback for the Steelers, most definitely.
To franchise or not to franchise? And Mike, of course, we have to go right away to that number 1 guy for the Packers, Devontae Adams. Franchise or not franchise?
I think they franchise him.
Bill?
I think they franchise him while working on a longer-term deal that they can hopefully structure in such a way. I guess not restructuring, it's a new deal. Can structure in such a way that they get a little bit of cap relief.
Mm-hmm. That sounds smart. Yeah.
Bill, the Titans, linebacker Harold Landry.
Yeah, what about him?
To franchise or not to franchise?
Oh, franchise. Yeah, I think he ends up getting franchised.
Mike.
Yeah, I agree. He's way too important for that defense to have him walk.
The Chargers, wide receiver Mike Williams. Mike?
He's gone.
Bill?
It's so easy to just draft another wide receiver who can do what Mike Williams does. Yeah, Mike's right. He's gone.
Bill, the Bucks, cornerback Carlton Davis. The franchise or not the franchise?
Once again, I'm going to sort of cheat here. I think that they, as a term is, slap the franchise tag, but I really think that they're going to end up doing like maybe a 3-year deal with him at some point, with one of those years being like a voidable year. You know, once again, stuff they can do to try to buy themselves some cap relief. They're one of the teams that has some cap stuff to work on, and franchising a bunch of players, even players you like, is a good way to not give yourself cap relief. So I really think that their goal is to do an actual deal with him.
What do you think, Mike? Cornerback Carlton Davis.
I agree with Bill. I think they either sign him or he's gone. I don't think they put him as a franchise tag.
Right.
Mike, the Saints, cornerback Marcus Williams.
The same. I think he's either extended for a couple of years or out the door.
Yeah, the Saints can't afford to be franchising people. Mike's 100% right.
The Bungles, and this is you don't see a lot of this, but Bill, free safety Jesse Bates.
Yeah. Once again, I mean, I was saying this a lot. I do think they use the tag just to buy themselves more time to negotiate. They want to keep him long term.
Mike,
I think he's gone. I don't see them keeping him. So I'm gonna say he's out the door.
another cornerback, the Pats.
You're right, Mike, because I'd love to see him go to a couple of teams that I like better. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike. James.
The Pats cornerback, CJ Jackson, Mike.
Yeah, he's gone. And he is another guy that quarter DBs are such a dime a dozen that you're probably not going to extend them or offer them a tag. You're either going to sign them long term or let them walk. And I can see the Patriots; they're so stingy too, the way they would do things. So I could see Jackson gone.
What do you say, Bill?
Once again, Mike is 100% correct. I think that if he's willing to do a team-friendly deal, as they say, they'll definitely be open to keeping him. But anything short of that, he probably is gone.
Bill, Chiefs offensive tackle Orlando Brown.
I think he's gone. I think that they're going to draft his replacement in this draft. But yeah, I don't think they're first of all, I don't think they're thrilled with his performance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's gone.
Yeah, I think he was one of those guys because last year they just completely dismantled the line. I mean, they released everybody before the season started, and Orlando Brown was available for them. And I don't think he performed at the level that they wanted him to. Right. And he's also getting a little older as well. So they'll probably go offensive line early, first or second round, and that would probably just allow Orlando Brown to be expendable pretty much.
Mike, the Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz.
They got two tight ends there, but Dalton Schultz is really the one that has been their guy the last couple seasons. So how much you're going to use the tight end this year is probably one thing, but they always seem to like the tight end. I'm going to say they're going to franchise tag Dalton Schultz.
What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I agree.
Bill, the Dolphins tight end Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, and this is another one of those. I really believe he ends up getting extended. Is what I really think the real answer is. But I mean, if that's not an available choice, then yeah, I guess I'd say franchise tag. But like I said, I really believe what happens, he gets the extension.
They should extend him because he's really the best receiving tight end that they have. But I've been hearing that he's out the door. So my opinion and what they're actually going to do might be two different things. But I think Mike Gesicki, especially giving, God, I just can't think of names today. The quarterback,
Tua Tagovailoa.
Thank you. Someone familiar, someone that he can just throw the ball up. I mean, the guy's like 6'7" or something. He's crazy tall and has a great catch radius. So, and they've been playing together for the last 3 years. So, I think he returns.
All right. Well, hey, we will return to more NFL next week. And Bill, why don't we start with you? Why don't you give us your final thoughts for the week? We know that you've been traveling, keeping up with a lot of these young men. And as I told Mike, you've already participated in one mock draft already. But why don't you give us
Yes.
before we go,
Yes.
we have to talk about what's happening in baseball. Gentlemen,
Okay.
are we going to have baseball this year? It certainly seems to me that spring baseball and training camps will definitely have to be shrunk at this
Yes.
particular time. But are we going to have a baseball season? Bill, what do you think? Bill? Did we lose Bill?
Yeah, I think we do end up just with a shortened season or whatever, but sort of like some of the other past years we've had work stoppages. It'll just be, they'll move things around, they'll compress things, play a bunch of double hitters. If you're old enough, you've kind of seen this movie before. Yes, they'll play a 97 game, whatever the number is of games. And like I said, they'll load up a bunch of double hitters and they'll start playing in, I don't know, after, let's just say July 4th, right? I'll just pick a day, right? No, right. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, Chevrolet. So yeah, that's just me throwing that out there. Yes, but they'll find a way to play baseball. Yes.
Well, I was shooting for Memorial Day, but I don't know. Go ahead, Mike. No baseball until the 4th of July, but go ahead.
I do agree with Bill. There's just way too much money on the table for them to not to have a season. I mean, they had a season through COVID of all things. So I think they'll figure this out, but it won't be like a regular season. It was going to be like a COVID season, what they did. And secondly, I don't think they could lose the fans. There's no Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire situation anymore. They can't just say, "Hey, go dope up and hit a lot of home runs and bring back the fans." That option was used already. So. Right. There's just way too much stuff to lose for them not to have a baseball season.
Okay, guys. Mike, I let Bill commented on it earlier. The settlement by the women's soccer team, equal pay, $24 million. What did you think?
I thought it was awesome. It was like. They absolutely. I don't think it's fair for all sports because I do believe that money talks, and if you're a pro basketball team compared to a WNBA team, the marketing is with the men, so most of the money should go to the men. But in this situation, where the women's soccer is probably more popular than men's soccer, and the fact that they are better at the sport than men are, I'm 100% behind it. I think it's a great victory.
Yeah, I thought it was a great victory. And Mike, you did bring up a very valid point. The women's soccer team is much better than the men's soccer team to begin with.
If you're paying for performance, right, they should be making more.
Yeah, the men should be carrying their
They should be really. I mean, good God.
you know, because to be serious, we watched the soccer and watched the women. We didn't watch the U.S. men. But anyway, Bill, your final thoughts this evening.
So my final thoughts go back to the event I attended last weekend, the HBCU Legacy Bowl, and I started thinking about what it is, but more importantly, what it could be. They had a job fair, and during the job fair, you got to see these young people. And once again, I was reminded, oh my God, college students are younger than when I was in college. Now, obviously, that's just my work perspective, but it's like I don't think I was that young when I was their age. But here's the thing that stuck with me. I thought we talked at one point about how do we fix what's going on in the NFL in terms of the lack of diversity. And I thought about this Legacy Bowl. I thought about all these HBCU students and soon to be future graduates who are getting to meet with NFL people and getting to get tips and pointers and get in front of the right people. And I thought about Lowell Perry, and I thought about Bill Nunn. And we talked about the Rooney Rule, and I want to add the Perry-Dunn Rule, right? Named for Lowell Perry, who broke the color line in terms of assistant coaches in the NFL, right? The first black assistant coach, of course, was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he was scouted a little bit. Was a sort of scouting assistant, I guess is the term we use nowadays. And then Bill Nunn, who for real broke the scouting color line in the NFL. And I think if we were to establish that a certain number of scouting assistants or scouting interns, even if it's a unpaid position, at least initially an unpaid position, I'll put it that way, for juniors who are rising seniors at HBCUs to get initial experience with player evaluation and things like that. And for those that want to be on the other side, not so much ones that don't want to be on the scouting side, but want to be more on the front office side, they get experience, or at least initial experience, with things like managing the cap and things like internal scouting, right? Or if you're not interested in external scouting, looking at other people's players or looking at college players, how do you look at your own players, right? Things like that. And then last but not least, if they do well, right? If you bring in 3, right, and of the 3 you bring in, one of them kills it. For the ones that get evaluated well, then there's a paid position waiting for the end of their internship when they finish college. So we start to increase, one, the number of scouts, and then for those on the front office side, we start to increase the number of people working in the front office, so that at some point you get more black GMs. And when you have 14 black GMs instead of, say, 3 black GMs, I think at that point the coaching situation sort of fixes itself. I think that so much when we talk about, we act as, it is complex. I don't want to pretend it's not a complicated issue. But sometimes these things are not as complicated as we make them sound. If we have an NFL where 45% of the GMs are black, or people at the near the top of the, operations and football operations food chains are black, or at least non-white, and we throw in, a decent number of them are women, so many of the things we're talking about will just, like I said, literally take care of themselves. And that is something I'm reminded of, all the battles, right? Because I've been doing a lot of my Black Football History tweets and Black Football History Month tweets and everything on Twitter. And I'm reminded of just how recently so many things in football were white. Like I said, my father used to always jokingly refer to the Washington Predators as the White Skins because, he was deep into his late 20s by the time that team had its first black player.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I can remember that. I can remember that also.
Right. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, in my lifetime, I remember the SEC being all white. I remember the first black players in the SEC. I watched that happen in real time. That wasn't that long ago. I remember the NFL's first black GM, obviously, because that was actually quite recent, really. And the first black head coach. I was, in my 20s, right? That wasn't that long ago when all these things happened, when Art Shell got his job. So yes, progress has been made, but a lot of this has happened very recently. And if you want to accelerate it or push it forward, instead of saying we have to have X amount of this or X amount of that, open the door at the bottom levels and then just say we're going to bring in X amount, we're going to, not even a particular number necessarily, but we're going to give these people who are impressive young people an opportunity to be face to face, to be, even if they're literally just, making copies and bringing coffee at first. That's so traditionally gone to somebody's nephew or son-in-law, or even all that's, an owner's, the kid that parks their car that really impressed them at the yacht club or whatever. A lot of these entry-level positions have essentially been closed off to anybody who wasn't already somehow connected. If we take care of that, so we open it up to people who don't already have an NFL connection, like I said, I think a lot of this stuff will fix itself. And that's my final thought.
Go ahead, Mike. Your final thoughts. But as Bill is saying, I can remember when LSU was all white, the football team. I can remember when Bear Bryant said he would never have a Negro playing for him. So when you take it in the course of a quarter of a century, it is relatively recent. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and that was one of the things too. I was thinking about what you guys were talking about, and one of the things I've thought about, a lot is that it's just like it's not too long ago, but it's. I think it just depends on how you look at it too. Because it seems like forever, and it just seems like it just recycles itself over and over and over again. So it's almost like you move 2 feet forward, and then you can go back 50 feet because you have whatever going on that, we're still dealing with coaches not getting jobs that are, it's just like, it doesn't make sense to me. It really, it does, but it doesn't, we know that that there's racism involved, and we know that that's the situation, but it's also we're in 2022 and, just what, so anyways, I get it, but I don't get it, and I certainly, I sympathize, but I don't know if I can, I'm not a person of color, so I don't understand it either. It's it's just something that I'm constantly thinking about. That is, I want to understand, but I don't think I can ever fully understand. But my final thought is that a lot of people, especially since we brought up baseball a little bit, is people are siding with the fans, people are siding with the teams, bickering back and forth, and the owners are wrong, the players are wrong. It's about money, it's about this, it's about all this. But what is lost is the people who have opened up a new restaurant next to the ballpark and have to pay outrageous rent just because it's next to the ballpark, but they won't have the fans because the fans aren't coming in. We forget about the people who walk up and down the stadium steps, mile after mile just to sell popcorn, and what they get paid, but they won't get paid any if the baseball doesn't play. People who sell the tickets, the people all upon that makes this engine run are the ones that are being cheated out here. It's certainly not the millionaires. So I'm for those that make the little buck and are losing out because players and owners are greedy. So let's think about them and let's think about how much they have to go through just to because the selfishness continues because players and owners want to make an extra $1 million instead of just doing what's right, and it's the little guy that gets cheated out in all this.
Mike, before we go there, there's one other thing that we have to address. I know you don't follow a lot of basketball, but the Jawan Howard thing,
Right.
the 5 game suspension, of course,
Yes.
that was the regular season.
Right.
But can you kind of address that? And as I said earlier, as soon as we have some type of controversy, the first thing we want to do is ban it. Like we have to stop this. Now they want to stop the handshake line. I remember the handshake line from when I was in junior high school.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up
even
shaking hands.
even Pop Warner football.
Right.
After the game is over, you all line up. I mean,
Yep.
I think like I said, in this day and age, people are so soft. As soon as anybody remember Bobby Knight, Jerry Tarkanian?
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Izzo. Come on. This is not the first time that we've had an altercation in the handshake line. But now all of a sudden we want to ban the handshake line.
It's ridiculous.
Come on, Mike. Talk to me. What did you think about?
Remember the John Chaney? That's one of the last.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I was thinking.
John Chaney and a very young what's his name? Calipari when his days at UMass.
Oh, Calipari. Yeah.
So, Mike. Tell me something here, man. I mean, really?
I mean, some of these things that come out, you're just like, you just want to sit the person down going, what the hell are you thinking? Like, do you just don't have a vetting system from brain to mouth, and it's just like, ridiculous, very ridiculous. I mean, you're just going to stop something just because something that shouldn't have happened. I agree. Juwan Howard should never have slugged anybody. You don't do that, but you're just going to get rid of handshaking. That's 99.999% way to do, the way to end that shows respect for your team and shows respect to the other team. You're just going to give it up because Juwan Howard, really? Does he really have that much power over everything? I don't think so. So, yeah, it was ridiculous to even have that even to come out. It's just dumb. It's just not thinking. It's dumb.
Yeah. That word progress, it's a word that, I'm not sure that it has a definition anymore. Is it one foot in front of the other? Is it, they used to say, walk a mile in my shoes. But hey, progress is something that we might want to discuss on my Monday show rather than this one. but hey guys, great having everybody here tonight, and we hope we can get Demetrius back. Don was doing some soccer things, but hey, as usual, we have fun here on the Sports Crib, and thank you guys for coming. Appreciate you, and Mike, we'll find something to talk about.
Heck yeah. I mean, I would miss you guys way too much if we didn't have. I would probably start watching basketball if we didn't have football. So there's no doubt about that. And yeah, I'm happy with this, and I'm happy to be here every night. So thank you guys.
I will make sure that I have something for us to talk about every week.
Awesome. All
right, guys. Have a great night. I'll see you next Thursday. Thank you,
gentlemen. Thank you
for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Sports Crib. Have a great weekend.
Sounds good. Have a great week. Take care.